Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers come together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I'm joined by my brother in crime, a man whose personality has been described as magical, a man who always brings his own broomstick, witch hunter, soothsayer, and overall master of the dark arts. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Oh, thank you so much. I know. It's just everything, all of it, all bubbling together. And whatever you do, just don't like it.
It is good.
In reference to the movie.
Indeed. It is very good to see you. It is very good to talk to everybody. All that other good stuff. Very seldom do I ever open up with an intro to an episode that we were doing with this thing. And are we ever like angry at each other? I don't think you. Out of all the friends that I've had since I've been here in Salt Lake, which is coming up on like. It's coming up on a decade actually this year. This year,
is
December.
That all?
Yeah, is that all right? You're Utah born and bred. I think I have. I think you and I have yet to get into like an actual serious argument about anything. Where like other friends that I've met here, I've actually had like like legitimate like political arguments with them about stuff. That's been interesting to me.
I think though it's very rare. I don't know that I have with any of my friends to like that level because. Just don't care to argue with my friends in that way.
100%, yeah.
But yeah, you want to use this night as a throwdown?
Yeah, we can ruin our friendship tonight. That's fine.
Do we?
Yeah.
You want to do that today?
We can do it.
Because I think I'm going to have a really strong opinion about what we're talking about.
How could you have any opinion but a good one about the family classic?
A good one?
Uh-oh.
Is that what you said? A good one?
Well, yeah, I mentioned...
Ugh, we might have the fight tonight.
Oh, no. Everybody, we're talking about Hocus Pocus 2.
I banish thee from Salem forever.
They were right to fear thee. Magic has a way of uniting. Happy 16th birthday, child.
I have a gift for my favorite customers. Legend has it, it's on the 16th birthday that a witch gets her powers.
Lock up your children! Yes, Salem, we're back!
Gilbert, where did you get that candle? We have to get out of here. The witches will be here any second. Ah! The book is alive.
He woke up?
If we intend to live past sunrise, we have to steal their souls.
Whoa, wait, can we talk about this?
No. We must fly! We run amok!
Not to freak out, but the vengeful maniac obsessed with getting revenge on Salem sounds very bad for Salem.
We should get some salt. Why? So we taste better when they eat us? Spread out.
That's not 6 feet under.
Stop! I am a good zombie.
And that was a trailer for Hocus Pocus 2. This is the sequel to the lovely 1993 film Hocus Pocus. Both produced and promoted by the Walt Disney Company and that kind of stuff. Let's go to the synopsis from IMDb. Hocus Pocus 2. Two young women accidentally bring back the Sanderson sisters to modern-day Salem and must figure out how to stop the child-hungry witches from wreaking havoc on the world. This movie began production last year in 2021, and it has been one of these legends of just like a family favorite. There are so many big fandoms based upon the Hocus Pocus lore and production, that kind of stuff, because it really was a fun family film when it came out in 1993, and it was one of the first kind of kids movies, family movies that put out that had like this really cool look at the comedic part of the Salem witch trials, which trust me, was not comedic at all when they were happening. And of course, and like whenever we talk about the witch trials back in Salem, back in the 17th, 16th century, something like that, of course, the subject of, female empowerment and magic and that kind of stuff always comes into play. And the first Hocus Pocus movie did not disappoint with doing a very good job of having strong female characters to provide not only good archetypes for the antagonists and protagonists, but I think the sequel did too. And it ended up being this IP that provided a nice, funny, family-oriented way to, establish this kind of calm demeanor around what was a really bad time in the history of the Americas, and also put in some really heartfelt messages about acceptance and magic and that kind of thing. And I'm happy to say that in Hocus Pocus 2, they were able to carry that along with a little bit. We jump in and we have this trio of three young ladies. They are played by Whitney Peak, who played Becca, Belisa Escobedo, who played Izzy, and Lilia Buckingham, who plays Cassie. We're also joined by the original trio of wonderful witches, played by Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Kathy Najimy. And we have some additional cast putting up in the form of Froy Gutierrez, Gutierrez, who plays Mike, the very talented Sam Richardson, who played Gilbert, the equally talented Tony Hale, who played two characters in the movie, and reprising his role as Billy Butcherson, the very capable creature and character actor Doug Jones, who was able to come on back from and provide the remaining touch on our favorite headless zombie boyfriend who was walking around. So this is one of those things that pops up, Andrus, because in the interwebs, as it were, the fandom has grown stronger for the sequel, and there has not been a year to date in 1993, when it comes around this time of year. Currently, we're recording in October of 2022. And whenever like Halloween comes by, there's always that question that I find in my feeds, being a bit of a cinephile, where's the Hocus Pocus sequel? Apparently this has been an ongoing discussion for the past 30 some odd years. And it has some drama behind it too, because there were some rumors of it possibly being put up back in 2014, but that ended up just being something else. And it's actually had its share of development hell when it comes to bringing back original cast members and getting writing through and that kind of thing. So one thing that I do have to give a lot of credit to Disney for is for, at 3 decades later, at the very least, being able to provide some entertainment for the fans of this movie. And also I want to give some credit to the fans too. This isn't one of my favorite Halloween movies. We want to talk about it because we think it's an important movie, because it could establish a lot of lessons when it comes to the business itself, fandom. And also, it's not very often around this time of year that you get a wholesome, fun family movie that comes out. Usually around this time of year, we're post-summer blockbuster. We're getting more into the serious movie season. We're getting things ready for the holidays and also getting things ready for next year and stuff too. But there's a brief glint of shocking, horror-based fun stuff that comes out around October, November. Then we move into the holidays. People start getting ready for, especially here in Utah, they start getting things ready for Sundance coming up next year. A lot of documentary stuff popping in, and we'll be getting into that. You guys have noticed the past couple episodes we've had, we've been doing a lot of action adventure, a lot of thriller, and now we're doing this one too. And that's because seasonally, that's how the movies run out. That's how the products are displayed to us, because it's been proven that's how people consume media like this. There are certain times of the year when you're expected to watch a Bond film. There are certain times of the year when you're expected to watch three witches ride on a broomstick, a vacuum cleaner, and a Roomba, and have diabolical Disney times in the town of Salem, Massachusetts. Andrus, what were your feelings about this? Was this just a cash grab to make a sequel, to make sure that the fans were happy after 30 years of hoping to see this happen, or was it? Or
I don't
you
know
know,
about a cash grab
Yeah.
because I mean, streaming is just not the same as what it used to be.
Right.
So as far as
That's true. It wasn't released in
opening
theaters.
and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't a major theatrical release. In fact, it was advertised more off of Disney Plus or the streaming service.
Oh, right. So, for me, this was like a what? There's a second movie, and what? It's the same cast, and what?
Right.
So for me, I had no idea that it was even in production or anybody was
You and me
was taking
both.
a stab at it again.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was actually a really pleasant surprise because I really enjoyed the original.
Yeah.
Just because they had, pardon the pun, but there was magic in the first movie. So I was expecting magic in this one.
Yeah. And we when we were discussing, like, talking about this title, within the first 5 minutes, you and I both were saying we got to compare this to the first one and talk about that a little bit. So this episode is going to be a little bit about the first Hocus Pocus and like this current one. And again, seasonally speaking, it's a pretty important movie to talk about. I mean, this is a movie that has been in the hearts of people for a long time. And I think I tend to agree with you a little bit because, unfortunately, because of problems with exposition and just chemistry, I do not think that this movie holds up to the first one, to be completely honest. What do you think?
At all. I mean, no.
So that's interesting. So let's talk about why people might have liked the first one versus this one. I think there's a lot of nostalgia that comes into it, but also I think that the story was just better in the first Hocus Pocus.
Well, and that's just it. I think, if I'm being honest, it falls into sequel traps, and I hate the fact that it falls into sequel traps.
100%.
Moving on from that idea. I've said it. Go ahead with what you were going to say.
I want to talk about sequel traps, actually. I think that's a good thing to talk about.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can we please talk about them?
So sequel traps specifically is when you and you guys have seen this, and there's an old saying that goes around in the music industry and the engineering industry and that kind of thing. Whereas it isn't the first album that's the most important for a band; it's the second. And I think that kind of goes with movies as well. Sequel traps specifically are when the quality of a particular film is less because, in layman's terms, the writing and the chemistry and the story for particular sequels just end up being lazy because, quite honestly, people know they can make money off of writing off the coattails of the first film, and this movie definitely suffered from that. We do have some good things to talk about it, but let's jump into the bad just a little bit. There is definitely some points that I want to make in regards to this movie not being a complete waste of time. If you got kids and you want to introduce them to the lore, first of all, have them watch the first movie.
Start with the first.
Absolutely.
And end with the first.
But it is definitely family friendly. You're not going to have any kind of weirdness when it comes to, some obscene jokes that are like, for mom and dad the kids are going to get or anything like that. This is wholesome, fun Disney programming. Also, a nice drinking game for mom and dad while the kids are watching. If you take a shot every time people say witch and you know that they mean to say bitch, that might be able to work for you because you'll be able to see that a lot in this movie. It is definitely, the production value is very good, and it does weigh heavily on the original trio, and Midler, Parker, and Najimy reprise their roles very well. You can tell they're having fun with it. You can tell some parts of the dialogue were improvised, and as always, they just lean hard into the tropes that you love about these characters, just being goofy witches who are disconnected from reality but have a solid goal of eating the spirits of children to retain their immortality and doing what they can to wreak havoc on Salem, and they lean into that very nicely. The costuming is great. The production value is very good. Sam Richardson plays a very safe, very capable support character in his Gilbert, and he does a very good job of being able to provide some comedic relief In one of the scenes, he's talking about, he refers to the first movie with a black candle lit by a virgin on Halloween night. And then a young kid in the audience in this scene, they ask what a virgin is. And of course, because kids aren't allowed to know about sex in Disney movies, everybody's like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And that might be a little tickling, that kind of thing. That's carried throughout the movie. We have Tony Hale, who does a great comedic job of playing Mayor Trask, and also Father Trask or Preacher Trask. I'm not exactly sure what it is with Puritans, but he did a great job being an amazing character actor as he is. He brings like a lot of comic relief into that. And I do personally want to give a big hand to Doug Jones reprising as Billy Butcherson. Doug Jones has been doing creature work in the past in movies. He is very good at being able to provide.
He is the name.
Yeah, he has been very, very prolific in his huge career of playing like all kinds of things. He was the amphibian man in The Shape of Water. He was Abe Sapien in the Hellboy series. He was the Pale Man and Fauno in Pan's Labyrinth. If you need somebody to put on a rubber suit and who can provide you with a whole scene of dialogue with just his movements and his body, you want to get Doug Jones to do it. And luckily with this, he is able to have some speaking parts, and he has the best Cockney accent that an American can provide, I think, when it comes to I don't know. I don't know if Mr. Jones is American or not, but regardless, he does an amazing job as always when he puts on the suit. So there's definitely some reasons here why you should watch this movie. If your kids are really into Halloween, and if you want to have something that is completely safe that you can play for them, and everybody can have a generally nice time eating some popcorn and watching your 5-year-old or 6-year-old talk about how Halloween can be fun and how movies can be fun, this might be for you. For everybody else, this movie is probably not going to work unless you want to play it in, like, the background of your Halloween party, or if you have some family coming by for Halloween. I know, especially in SLC, especially in Salt Lake, Halloween is taken pretty seriously here, and that was a bit of a culture shock for me, not coming from New York or from LA where I was living before, but where I was raised, Halloween was not a fun holiday. And here, where a lot of people that are in our community actually do have families and do have kids, this movie is selling like hotcakes. There are a lot of people who are talking about it. A lot of people who are talking about how, after 30 years, finally. But you also see a lot of comments saying, my kids loved it. Mm-hmm. But there are some problems. Andrus, why don't you talk about a little bit some of the things that kind of busted up your immersion, kind of made it a rough choice to talk about today. What are some of the goods and the bads from where you were sitting that popped in while you were watching this one?
Just for me, like I was excited for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that. I mean, I put a Spell on You from the first one just as a standout for me because there was something, again, magical and interesting and Bette Midler-y and all of the things that you would expect from Bette Midler.
100%.
This
the legend
gigantic character of what this is.
Absolutely.
A kid-friendly Halloween movie, right? Randomly too, I ended up knowing the director many years later, and I actually thought it was Frank Marshall. I didn't know that it was Danny Ortega.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, Kenny Ortega.
Yeah.
And Kenny directed the High School Musical movies.
That's right.
So there's that.
That's cool. Yeah.
There's that crossover.
That's
there.
a great connection.
But there was just a magic in a sense of what they did in the first one that they tried to just duplicate or copy or Xerox it. And I mean, there's your 1993 reference.
Yeah, very good. Oh wait, you know what? Before we even
it
start,
didn't really work for me.
I understand. And also, that's one thing that we have to talk about a little bit too.
Spoiler alerts! Spoiler alerts!
Before we talk about whether we really, really like or really, really dislike this movie, if you haven't seen it, stop listening. Take your kids, get some popcorn, order Disney Plus, get your 30-day free, tryout, and watch it, and talk to them about how, witches aren't real, Well, not these kinds of witches.
No, they're real.
Okay, they're real. Never mind. That being said, yeah, I can definitely respect where you're coming from. It was definitely...
Well, okay, so I mean, literally, like, scene to scene, there's almost identical scenes happening.
I'm glad you picked that up. Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
And it was, if you're going to give me a sequel, don't give me the stupid reference to, by the way, 29 years later. Just say 30.
Yeah, just say 30.
Just say 30. Just round it.
Make an even number.
But it's only 29. I don't know. I had some issues with the regurgitation of content.
Yeah, I understand.
It felt plagiarized.
I think that regurgitation, like you're talking about, is okay when it comes to character work like this in small degrees.
Characters, yes, please.
100%. Because, like, again, like the trio was running this movie. People came to watch it because of one of the Sanderson sisters, and they got it. And I really could tell, well, I don't know if it was a situation where it was just my own nostalgia picking up on it, but I really did feel that Midler and Najimy and Sarah Jessica Parker were having a great time, just like putting up these characters again and having these little sight gags. It was kind of like, it's the Three Stooges in a sense. We get this kind of stuff popping up where, occasionally we'll have Mary, played by Najimy, say something like goofy, and then like Sarah Sanderson, who's played by, like Sarah Jessica Parker, gets slapped on the wrist or something by Winifred, Bette Midler's character, because she doesn't want to be reminded of certain things. And it's like this really good chemistry, and I think that is what made the first movie such a hit, and what is able to carry the bad parts of this movie into somewhat good ones. Also, I do have to give a huge heads up to Madam Hannah Waddingham, who played Mother Witch.
Such a wonderful surprise.
Oh my gosh, that was refreshing.
That was so lovely.
That was great. She looked great. She did a great job just trying to do the magic.
Ted Lasso fan here.
Oh, Ted Lasso for sure. But just this, again, it's very hard for me to kind of like be the guy who is like, with all of these ladies too. Hannah Waddingham has just blown up with Ted Lasso, and people don't know like how much of a character actor she is, and how good she is at what she does, because most of her stuff has been going on across the pond. Us as Americans over here, we've only gotten a few brief moments of her, and this was a nice surprise. She comes up as the Mother Witch, the one that grants the Sanderson sisters her power within the first act, within the first 5 minutes. And also, we have to give a huge heads up to Taylor Henderson, Nina Kitchen, and Juju Journey Brenner, who played the younger version of the Sanderson sisters, because their caricatures of the original trio that Midler, Najimy, and Parker set up were fantastic. And when you have child actors who can actually mimic the original characters in regards to that proves that they have some talent. And working with kids is hard. I mean, you know that because that's one thing that you do, being an acting coach and being able to provide a lot of mentorship for younger actors. I've had to deal with that sometimes as well. The biggest thing that I had to worry about when I was working with kids in the few films that I had to work with them, is that they always tried to grab the boom mic, and you always got to be like, hey, please, just don't touch it, please. But anyway, there are really good shining examples of really good points of acting here. It's just the writing doesn't support the talent, I think. And when you get like this, and it's the writing because, again, it's the sequel problem. You have lazy writing that's just going to, like you mentioned, Xerox what happened in the original, because they know the original works. But it still has to have soul. It still has to have something in there that's going to keep people going. And I think, honestly, that Disney was betting that, first one was in 1993. Even though the original fans are a huge reason as to why this movie even got made, they're making it so that people who've never heard of Hocus Pocus will be able to watch it and be able to make it a profitable IP. What do you think was popping up with that strategy that was coming about? I mean, this is...
Well, yeah, no, of course. If your first one's successful, definitely put in the effort to make the second one.
Right, but it shouldn't be scene for scene, right? I mean, that's what we were seeing in here.
Yeah, or close to.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know that this one's scene to scene, like I said earlier, but I mean, it's very much a carbon copy of what the first one is. There's some changes and differences. But
there's a lack of exposition too. Like I didn't like how we had really talented female actresses here in Whitney Park, in Escobedo, and Buckingham, and their friendship just gets tossed out the window. It doesn't go into like, you know, why they started. So as we're introduced to Becca and Izzy and Cassie, who are the main protagonists, and we find out that later in the movie that Becca's actually a witch, and she's a practicing Wiccan, and Belisa Escobedo is the comic relief, and Lula Buckingham plays Cassie, who is the best friend who is dating the high school quarterback played by Froy Gutierrez, Mike, and because of that, their relationship has become estranged. The three of them used to be best friends, used to do everything together, the usual old trope, and then, you know, puberty kicks in, and unfortunately that changes and ruins everything, including friendships. Also, if anybody's listening to the show, we know that puberty ruins a lot more than just friendships, okay?
It's everything.
It's everything. Oh, God. Anyway, that being said, we don't get any kind of exposition in regards to why there was this big break, and it's supposed to be used as a big narrative thread within the movie,
right?
And it's supposed to be like the situation where there's redemption later on, but it just falls flat. What are some of the challenges that you think when you involve a multi-aged cast like this for there to be chemistry? Because we have children. We definitely have kids who are like, you know,
right.
under 12, under 13 years old. We have young adults who are pushing anywhere from 16 to 20, and then we have classic actors who have been doing this work for years. What are some of the challenges that you think we're probably running up in regards to that?
Just all of it. I mean, you know who your stars are, and you're going to cater to your stars when they're on. But when you're introducing a new lead, like they did with Becca, with Whitney Peak, you need to establish some sort of sympathy and connection to that character, so that you know whose story you're watching. And for me, it felt more like a Sanderson Sisters show with a side gig, a sidecar. But I mean, because they started the show with, of course, you know, the Salem time frame, the 1600s.
Yeah.
And that established the girls and the backstory as far as the original lore. She turned 16, so she's got to marry a guy because that's the only value that she has, and she's defiant and all of those things. But there wasn't the parallel in the contemporary timeline,
right?
With the exception of the age, and that's the age that you can transition into being a witch.
Yeah.
There was no connection whatsoever, unless I completely missed it, that she could potentially be a witch.
The only thing we saw was that we had her show
the pop quiz comment, but also later in the movie, she shows her powers. That's it. No, but yeah, that's just it, and she just had her birthday.
Exactly, yeah.
So I mean, outside of we're going to spell it out for you that this is a possibility,
right?
That they didn't go into any history with Whitney's parent or Becca's parents, or lineage or anything like that,
right? Unless,
again, I absolutely missed it.
No, you didn't. I think that's why the first one was kind of fresh too, because because
they established everything, and it just made sense.
That's the thing. We were able to establish the rules, and then the second and third act in the first movie played within those rules. And that's one of the rules that I'm saying rules a lot, but that's one of the things that people expect. I mean, it's the Matrix equation or whatever. The reason as to why a lot of people give a lot of flack to the Matrix sequels is, first of all, it's a great example of what we were mentioning before on the coattails of the first one. But secondly, because they had rules in the universe, and the first movie followed them, and the second, third, and fourth did not. And with this movie, we didn't have any kind of established rules into it, whereas the first one, we absolutely did. We had this cool legend with, like, you know, the candle coming up. We had this great thing with the
book.
With the book, 100% with the book. But I'm thinking also with the cat's name, Thackeray, I think his name was.
Oh yeah, and they didn't do anything with that.
Yeah, they didn't do anything with that, with Thackeray and Mr. Binks and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that when you don't have established rules that pop in, that gives you less of a scaffolding to provide more more support for more characters. And the first movie by far was an ensemble. It was a cast movie. It was a situation where we did have a major showrunners in the trio of the witches coming through, but a great supporting cast where we had another trio of friends and the parents and the police and the Black Cat and his ghost sister and that kind of stuff,
and a zombie
and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And when you have more synergy with a bigger cast, that gives you more options for comic relief, tragedy, sadness, happiness, all that stuff. And we didn't have that with this one. We didn't have like any kind of rules that established like, okay, how did the candle come back, right? What are the reasons as to why the girls are really worried about this? They didn't treat it as like a big deal when these witches were trying to like eat children or that kind of stuff. It just seemed to fall flat for me. And unfortunately, even though we did have the three sisters pulling up a lot of the weight, by the time we get to the third act, when they're trying to provide like this really heartfelt kind of message where they do the magic spell that's supposed to give Winifred all the power, and she doesn't realize that in order to do so, she loses her sisters. That's supposed to be like this huge kind of heart-pounding moment. And the scene was cute. I mean,
it pulled some heartstrings.
Yeah.
And like, that's very, very sweet. And like, that's a nice twist, but ultimately flat.
That's the problem with the entire thing, really. Why is it that we have like the opportunity here to really lay heavy on the trio and like what they can do when it comes to like, this slapstick fashion of comedy?
Well, and I'm surprised that they actually went to some of the slapstick.
Yeah, me too.
Because that's just not appropriate anymore, right?
Exactly. Like
and it felt really weird that they went to some of the slapstick like they did back in the 90s, which was appropriate then, but now it's a conversation.
I think that like the cultural things that we're going through now when it comes to political correctness definitely affected this film. And the one company that has to be completely honorable to that is definitely Disney, because they've been a family-friendly brand for a while. That being said, it's still very, very cool to see like representation in this movie. That's great. I think it's wonderful that we have an African American and a Latino coming up as the main leads. We have Sam Richardson putting out there doing his thing, and he's great and everything. We even have like drag queens coming up and doing celebrating the fandom of the witches popping up, and that was great. I think that like when we have the opportunity to give more opportunities good Lord, when we have the capability of providing everybody a chance to have a role in a movie, that's great. The more people, the more minds, the more points of creativity are awesome. But why not lean into that a little bit more? The first movie was a character movie. It was an ensemble movie. We have good opportunities here with some of these characters to really flesh it out and really have more opportunities for, slapdash gags and like humor and comedy and everything. But it's all on the shoulders of like Najimy and Sarah Jessica Parker and Midler. And over the time, it's just like, well, we just don't believe that they're really feeling it sometimes. What are your feelings when it comes to like, I mean, like the second and third act just kind of like falling down on their faces a little bit, because it seems that everything was just solved so easily.
As you were talking a moment ago, I started spinning my wheels, and I came to the conclusion of they weren't doing a true sequel. They called the first one Hocus Pocus, this one Hocus Pocus 2, implying it's a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
But it's not a continuation of the story, it's a continuation of the movie. And that's a distinction. That's a distinction for me.
Dig into that, please.
Big.
Yeah, explain that.
So they're referencing everything that happened in the movie as if it's been passed down for the last 2 decades or 3 decades,
right,
of what this history is. And I think the exposition that we get from Sam's character, what was his name?
Gilbert. Yeah.
The magic shop guy. His backstory made so much sense
100%.
For this film.
Yeah.
If he was the lead character in this film,
exactly,
it would make so much more sense. But because they have this trio of teenagers to make it, I think, Disney, right? But I think it would have been Disney anyway, with the trio of megastars that we have with the Sanderson sisters anyway.
Right.
I think it would have been really interesting if the trio of teenagers ended up being his minions or his.
Yeah, why isn't Becca
his storyline?
Yeah.
Rather than the other way around.
Why isn't Becca Gilbert's daughter? That's what I wanted to figure.
Well,
to talk
and
about.
that would make a lot of sense, right?
Right.
As far as everything that goes, and then even a jealousy factor when, of course, she ends up with some of the witchy business.
The witchy power, yeah. If you get inherits the book.
I know. I didn't want to spoil it. She's a witch.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
But there was something that was so missing about just the continuation of the Sanderson sister story. And it was really fun to see a little bit of their history as younger women.
I thought that was the best part of the movie, honestly.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I liked that part. Once we got into the contemporary timeline, I think the 1993 did it so much better as far as we're now on for this journey and this is what we have to do. But if now we're looking at Gilbert going down the path of fandom to his demise and then he needs to dig his way out, I think that's so much more of an interesting story, even with the Sanderson sisters doing their thing again. And then it could have been a cautionary tale.
Right.
Rather than this carbon copy.
Yeah, it was definitely a carbon copy. I think
so
there could have been chemistry too with Becca trying to save Gilbert or something like that too. Like, imagine if it's like a situation.
And of course, there's that forgiveness level.
Absolutely. Imagine
everything
if
else
it's
happens that's in there already. It's
absolutely
just more powerful that way.
Absolutely. What if Becca was hypothetically speaking
a niece even
or something.
a relative of some sort,
or like her parents died in a car crash or something, and
oh my gosh, can we so be cliche because that's so powerful?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Gilbert is like the dad who never wanted to be the dad, and he accidentally takes it out on her sometimes. He doesn't mean to because he still loves her or whatever. We shouldn't rewrite the movie, but like, I mean, maybe that kind of says what we needed from this.
Isn't it though? Isn't it? I mean, that this is a sequel. It's a rewrite of the original. Why didn't they just ask us?
Yeah.
Ask the fans. Ask the fans. Especially after the 2014 fail.
Yeah, 100%. No, you're right. It's interesting how we always get into like the situation when we do deal with like the sequel problem, where it's always a hindsight kind of situation. And in that hindsight, you can absolutely see, and that's why it was a bit aggressive when I popped up the first question that I had for you in this episode was, was this a cash grab? And the reason as to why I asked that is specifically because of the reasons that you were mentioning before. It feels like a carbon copy. It doesn't feel like it's an original story. An original, I mean, like it doesn't feel like it's its own story. You mentioned very, very succinctly, I think, very intelligently, it's a continuation of the Hocus Pocus movie, not the Hocus Pocus story. And the best thing that you can do for a sequel is to make sure that you offer honor and offer Easter eggs and continuation from previous iterations of the IP, but still have the sequel be its own story. That's how sequels are supposed to work well. That's how, I mean, the MCU has been doing it for years, baby. Lord of the Rings did it. They did this whole thing where it's like, you know what? This is definitely going to be honoring the first movie and the lore that we have. We're going to be working within the rules that we have within this universe, unless we do something really cool and well written to move those rules around. But we're still going to have our own chemistry with the introduction of new exposition, new characters, and new problems, but still have it be in line with what's going on. Not just be like a carbon copy where we have shot for shot. Here's a shot with the Dark Woods. Here's a shot with the three friends. Here's a shot with the, and like that, because of that, we lose some appreciation for some of the Easter eggs that pop in because, Gilbert does have a cute little black kitty cat. And it's like, that's a nod to the first movie, but it gets unappreciated when it kind of gets like weighed down by like, oh, okay, so we're just, kind of doing this again. And there's no chemistry, and there's just lazy writing that's popping up in the movie, and it's a shame because I was a freshman in high school when I saw Hocus Pocus. I went to see it in the movie with friends. I love Halloween, and I can definitely understand how people would be fans of that lore. And I think maybe a lot of the fandom was failed a little bit by the sequel, and it's a shame because it's a fun story. It's one of the few stories that we have that come up around Halloween where it's safe to bring your kids to and to be able to talk about stuff and be able to even wire in. And I know I talk about this a lot, guys. I know, but I can't not say it. Wire in like these subtones of like feminism and like some cool stuff about like how powerful female characters can be a really cool thing, and how, you know, independence and family can work, and it just gets lost on something like this because it feels fake.
Well, for me, the original story had so much more to do with everything that they were talking about. It just felt like everything in the second movie had those things as like a checklist item to be in there.
Yeah.
And then they just retold the same story.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm still kind of stuck on that. And that doesn't make sense to what your comment was. That's just like,
no, it makes sense about your opinion though. And I was asking a question. I was kind of venting about it a little bit because it does end up being a situation where we're, you know, after 29 years, we're hoping after 30 years of people saying how much they would like to make this movie, you know, it's going to be profitable if you make it well. And also, that could open up more season opportunities. This is the last Hocus Pocus movie we're going to see, period. Because it's just not going to get enough of a good clout. And also, we have to think about, like, you know, it's on streaming and that kind of thing, too. But I don't want to waste all of the hour that we have to talk when it comes to just, like, lambasting this movie. Let's talk about some of the good...
I kind of do, though.
You do? What else is bothering you about it? Unload, please.
Continue. Everything.
Okay.
All of it. No. Let's talk specialties, like you were saying. I think that I think I want you to go first because I'm curious to think about what you thought about the sound.
Sure. Okay. Well, honestly, the sound was pretty generic. I'll be completely honest.
That's another one of those things where it's just like, throw it in. You know what I mean?
I do like the idea though of the way in which they leaned a little bit more into the musical aspect in this movie.
Well, yeah,
that was super fun.
Hannah's scene. You've got the
talent show where Bette Midler is taken on.
Again, that's kind of just a rip off of the original
because she puts the spell on people, like, you know, dance until you die. Right. But then, like, in the closing credits, they had this great single that was popping up when they had all. It was jazzy. It was nice. And I was thinking to myself, wow, okay, you know what? I'll give it to him. I really do like how this movie balanced it between it not being a musical, but still being kind of musical. And then I realized why. Because a Broadway musical for Hocus Pocus was licensed in the same year that this movie was produced. And
there it is. And do you know what? I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. So that's my.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Dude, those are my two brains about it, right? One side of my brain, the business sense, is like knocked it out of the park.
So here's the thing: when you've got an iconic cast like the trio that is the Sanderson sisters, with iconic characters that developed from that people have done.
Iconic Broadway actresses, Bette Mother-loving Midler. Are you kidding me?
No, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, it does. And there's a part of my brain that says, you know what? Hit it out of the park. Great business decision. We're going to see a Hocus Pocus musical on Broadway before the end of the year, and it's probably going to be one of the best things. The problem is that musical is going to be 10 times better than this movie was.
Do you know what the next one is? Oh, I just looked it up. Do you know what the next big Broadway hit is?
No, what?
Called Bad Sequel.
You just looked that up, did you?
No, I just looked it up, and it's starring all of the Bad Sequel stars.
That's amazing.
It's going to be a genius. Genius.
They're going to sell so many T-shirts.
They're going to sell so many, and it's going to say Bad S Sequel. So, or it's going to be a Bad 2.
A Bad 2?
Oh, no, we can't go down that rabbit hole.
Don't do it. How dare you? Wait. This definitely brings up Spider-Man vibes for me. If you guys,
how so?
Well, because during the last Spider-Man movie that we had with
With all of the Spider-Man?
With all the Spider-Man. The first run, where like Venom was introduced and everything, that was when we were beginning to get the Spider-Man musical that came out on Broadway, a decade or so ago. And everybody can remember these lovely scenes in the last Spider-Man movie, the first generation of them, where we had Peter Parker going about and acting like a jazz singer and having a musical in the second act of the movie. Tobey Maguire was wearing a black turtleneck, and he was
for sure.
And he was telling people that, hey, catch me some shade, or something like that, when he's trying to like bribe waitresses or something to give him a good seat. And he begins singing down Fifth Avenue and bothering people. And they did that, and this was admitted by a production staff, because they wanted to let people know in their own way, hey, a Spider-Man musical could work. No, it can't. And it didn't. It was a phenomenal blockbuster of...
But the Avengers, the musical.
Oh, man, I can't wait for that.
Yes.
If you guys go back and check it out, there was the Spider-Man musical was a great, amazing idea. It was a physical debacle. Every lead who played Spider-Man left that production with broken legs, arms, wrists, because they were trying to do these acrobatic things that unfortunately were a little too dangerous. They were able to get it down. In fact, I think it might still be running as a tour. Maybe not. Don't test me on that. But towards the end of its run, it was getting better. But the way in which people found out about it was because of Tobey Maguire going about and doing his, jazz club thing in the movie.
Well, they tried the same thing with the original. Well, I don't want to say the original, but the Christopher Reeves Superman.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
With the Mind musical. Can you read my mind?
I think that would be... No, that'd be equally as bad. That being said, like... that kind of like, when you talk about the sound of like music and everything, generic, but like when it comes to like these numbers that pop up, I mean, Bette Midler is a consummate professional. She has an amazing
I'm sure
voice.
The musical side of it was great.
Ridiculous. But it kind of gets a little, I'm a little torn on it, because there's a part of my brain
magic zaps.
Absolutely. There's a part of my brain that has like the magic zaps, and it's like, wow, this is great. The musical is going to come out in the next 6 months. People are going to be watching this movie well into November. Oh my God, great business decision, amazing. But the part of me that's trying to enjoy the film, and when I find out that happens, it's like, oh, so that's why they had it at the end, and that's why I didn't have much context for the entire story. It's because they're just trying to remind people that Bette Midler is an incredible singer and songwriter, and they're doing it. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And it bothered me a little bit. Besides that, though, I mean, like, everything was generic. They had, like, I recognized some of the lightning sound effects that they used in the scene where, like, all the Sanderson sisters are getting their power and they're shooting, and then the Jamie does...
lightning bolts.
Yeah. And the Jamie does, like, the 6-shooter thing where she's constantly just, like, shooting lightning bolts in there.
Hey, yeah.
God, she's a great comedic actress. She's a great actress, period. So, nothing weird. I mean, like, there was definitely some ADR that popped up that...
I missed that.
Oh, man.
Hallelujah, I missed that. That's great.
It could have been... I guess it could have been better. That also, everybody who's listening, you have to the 15 people that tune in to our podcast have to keep in mind. I've only been able to go through a handful of direct-to-video movies where I was... head mixing engineer. When it comes to like mastering and editing and taking care of the prolific amount of challenges that a major studio production has to go into, I don't want to give too much of an opinion, because I'm sure there are things here that different challenges that people ran into. So I always take what I say with a grain of salt. But yeah, there's nothing you heard here that was any different. I'm still just thinking about how gorgeous Hannah Weddingham looked in her costume and what a good job she did. But that being said,
you know what that movie did for me?
What's that?
It made me want an original Hocus Pocus movie starring Hannah.
100%. Actually, that would be great.
It's like it's not called Hocus Pocus, like nothing or two. It's just called Hokey Pokey.
Hokey Pokey. I love it. What are some of your...
That's so dumb. Why did I say that? Strike that from the record.
Absolutely. Cut that.
Yeah.
When we get into like your speciality though, I think that there's probably a lot you could put into this because like what we mentioned before, there is a very diverse cast and that's always a good thing. And we have different actors who are very capable from a lot of different age groups. What was again, like when it comes to casting like this, what's the biggest challenge that you deal with? What were your feelings about how it was handled in the film? Oh, and one more thing, like, is it? This is one of those situations too, where I think like it's a different movie if we don't have Bette Midler, Najimy, or
most
Parker.
Definitely
you know,
is a
right?
very different movie,
What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, so here's the thing: the first question that came to mind when I saw that there was a Hocus Pocus 2, does it have the 3?
100%. Yeah. Okay.
Because if they recast one of them, that would have been just no bueno because the 3 are the 3. And if you're writing the coattails and calling it 29 years later and you're doing a recast, but you're not poking fun of it, it just doesn't work.
Doesn't. Yeah.
So that was the very first question that I had. And then I got into it and I was just constantly irritated by all of the repeat stuff, but I really did like the opening, especially the young actors that they got to play. The young Sanderson sisters had the essence, and because they had the essence of the main cast, I bought into it more. The biggest problem that I had with that though is because the trio as the Sanderson sisters in their adult form, they are so nuanced in their choices and their decisions and their craft. Pardon the pun. But having these younger actors mimic them, I think worked to a degree, but there was part of it that was missing for me. And I'm wondering how, if at all, they had access to the older version of the character.
That's an interesting question.
So I like, for me, if I'm ever playing a character, I want to dive into all of the nuances of the character, but these kids are so young, I'm not sure what their process is or what access they had to these icons.
Yeah.
So because of that, I was looking and being really critical as far as the little nuances. And there were a couple of things that came to mind that I'm not going to call out here because ultimately the essence was there and it made sense. And I really did like that. The prosthetics for Winifred, so stinking good.
Really good,
because it just adds so much to the character.
It does.
Like, you know, the small lips, the
teeth, the huge eyebrows that are popping up, and like I think that the surprising thing that I really did enjoy about this a bit was Parker's performance, because very seldom do we see her play the ditzy airhead. She's
and she's
so
played
good.
it a couple times in the past, and she's always so stinking good at it because I think that she is an incredible actress. But the other thing is, this is 30 years later, and it's still so incredibly physical.
Oh yeah.
Kudos to all of them.
It's slapstick,
they can do.
They're 30 years older and they're still like doing the physical part of it.
I'm exhausted doing physical
Absolutely.
at my age, and I'm 20 years their junior easily.
Yeah.
So it's props is all I can say. And then Doug Jones, come on, forget about it. Like, he is so stinking solid in his work.
100%.
If I get a chance to work with him in the future, I'm just gonna like pinch myself because he's another legend.
He's just somebody who says so much with his articulation, his body movements, and everything too. It's ridiculous.
For me, the idea of representation on this one, it's always a good thing to be inclusive of anybody, everybody, all races, backgrounds, etc. But for me, this one failed a little bit in that it was an all-female cast for the teenagers, and the boyfriend is the dumb idiot, which is, I mean, the scene.
It's kind of cliche. It's kind of cliche.
No, it was, and it was. I appreciated the fact of what they were doing with it because
I know what you're talking about.
He he is the pretty jock. He is the popular kid, but they also gave him this dolt-like conscience. He's like, oh, I was a bully? I thought I was just... I didn't know that hurt your feelings. I just thought I was speaking truth.
Yeah. There's a scene. There's a scene where they're up at the bus. And it's right after Mike got saved, and he's like, Becca says something like, "Yeah, you've been making fun of us for years. You keep saying that we're weird because we have charms and that kind of stuff." Because I get the feeling my headcanon, and this is another thing too. I had to fill in some blank spaces here at this movie, which is the cardinal sin. I think that Becca was a practicing Wiccan, and I think that and being a Wiccan is a real religion. It's something that people do use as a point of
but they use the word weird as a replacement word, right?
Exactly, and that's the thing where Mike was talking about how I was just saying that you use crystals and use this and that, and that's weird. And then Becca said, like, hey, you saying that it's weird is making fun of us. It's being and that's the argument, and it is, and that's something that could be taken. This is the Disney way of addressing
a bully situation.
Absolutely, right? It does feel on one side it's like, you know what, kudos to you, because at least you're using it in a safe environment. But you could replace that with, like, this is how Disney is going to, in a kids movie talks about why it's bad to be, racist, homophobic, sexist, that kind of stuff. When you take somebody's identity and you use a derogatory term to describe that identity, that's bad, and it absolutely is. In this case,
well, I mean, at what point is different going to be a bad word, and they're going to start saying different?
That's the thing. When you have when you have it presented in a couple lines, where Mike is professing that he's so stupid that he doesn't realize that. At least he's a positive.
Well, he's obviously hurt and offended at his own.
It's patronizing.
Words,
yeah, that's what it is. It's patronizing when it comes to that kind of stuff. And also, I mean, it's kind of supposed to be easy to digest, though. And at least they did have, like, the cute thing where Mike was having this realization, and he realized that he was a bully and that he was bad.
Oh, I didn't realize I was being so mean.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. At least he apologized. At least he got it, which is fun, which is okay. But to your point, yeah, 100%. But it has to be that way because it has to be easily digestible because it's a Disney movie for family and for kids.
Here's the other part. Here's going back to my complaint list on this. The Sanderson sisters eat children to stay young.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, they eat their souls, to be specific. Actually, Andrus, I'm afraid here I am making fun of a group in a derogatory fashion, and I apologize. But I am a nerd, and I'm going to have proper representation.
But if you just push up your glasses, then
my glasses are so heavy; they keep falling down my nose.
You keep falling down.
I can't do it.
And it's just like that.
But that being said, technically, in the first movie, it was established that a kid had to drink a potion, and then in a very non-violent, family-friendly way, the witches would then suck up their soul, and the kid would disappear. It isn't like they're making kid stew here. They're not like hacking and pulling.
No, it's not Hansel and Gretel in the witch house.
Exactly. But they eat kids.
But I mean, the idea of a witch, eating children or taking their souls or whatever is not a new concept in that world, right? But there was a genuine threat, I think, that they had in the first one.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that.
Absolutely not present in this one.
Not at all.
They went for the sisterhood side of the content on this one,
which was smart.
Which is another fail for me because now we have our villains that are no longer a threat.
Good call. That's a very good point.
And that just drives me crazy about this. And then there's even that flip at the end, because that would make the flip at the end even more sentimental and more emotive.
Yeah.
Affecting for me is if that villain side has to drop and crumble because of sisterhood.
Yeah.
And then that makes way more sense.
It does make way more sense. It's a thing where if you don't have a reason to dislike the antagonist, then you don't have an antagonist. You have empty space.
You know who the antagonist was in this movie for me?
Time? I don't know. What?
Well, sequel problems. No, it was Gilbert.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Gilbert was selfish.
Isn't that a fail on their side?
100%. He is more than capable. I mean, God.
Can I just shout out really quick to Tony Hale? I just adore
yeah.
him.
Oh my God, what a great!
I am
he's so
glad
funny.
that he had a bit part in this.
Me
but
too.
It was so fun.
But both him and Sam Richardson are amazing character actors. Bringing up Ted Lasso again, Sam Richardson had a small cameo on there.
Yeah.
Did an amazing job, and you hated his guts. What's wrong with hating Gilbert's guts? Why does everybody have to end up being a friend at the end of this movie? And the reason is because the Disney movie and Disney movies have happy endings. Because they have to sell more Disney Plus.
But you know what would be way more interesting
What?
is if there was another sequel in 29 years.
Hey.
Oh wait, when's the movie or the play coming out? The music?
Probably by the end of this year.
Yeah, there it is.
And that's probably the best way we can call it quits on this one. If you guys liked what we were talking about, please feel free to let us know. Again, we are Hocus Pocus fans. Andrus and I both love Halloween, but we're not going to lie to you guys and tell you. You can probably, if you got kids, go ahead. Sit them on down, get some popcorn, have a good time. If not, you can skip this 100%. That being said, but anyway, maybe you're a big Hocus Pocus fan. Maybe you feel like, it's a time-honored tradition. With like maybe you watch it every Halloween. That's fine. If you do happen to have any kind of grievance with what we said or whatever, let us know. You can email us at pullfocuspod@gmail.com. You can go ahead and put some comments on the YouTube video. Just remember, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. Andrus, thank you so very much once more for giving me your opinion. I love it when I think my favorite time is not. I've said this before. My favorite time isn't when we both disagree or agree, like hard. We've had experiences where it's like been a movie and you and I just cannot agree upon like whether it's good or not. I love it like when we're like kind of like in the middle. And we can still like today, which is very good. It's very refreshing, and I really do appreciate you taking time to talk with me. It's really cool.
For sure, back at you.
Absolutely, and all of you guys, we do appreciate you taking time to listen. Again, like and subscribe on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and just do what you can to have a happy Halloween this year. Be safe, and you know that we're gonna keep talking about movies, and you can keep listening in and let us know how things are going. But in the meantime, hope you guys are good. Hope everything ends up well, and we will be talking to you again soon. Bye.